For this project, I'm looking at a voting issue that happened in Chester County, Pennsylvania. I'm focusing on how poll book error during a recent election affected voters' trust in the system. I'm interested in this because voting is something that people take seriously, and when something goes wrong, it can really change how people feel about elections and government overall. Also, I haven't voted yet since I turned 18 in June, and this is something that I would like to learn more about. Chester County is in southeastern Pennsylvania and it is part of the Philadelphia suburbs. It's a pretty large and politically active county. What's important here is that there are about 75,000 voters registered as independent or third party. During this election, those voters were the ones most affected by the poll book error. So instead of looking at the whole country equally, this project mainly focuses on those voters and their experiences. The social issue I'm focusing on is a poll book error that happened in the 2025 election in Chester County. Because of a mistake in how the poll books were printed, independent and third-party voters weren't listed. This caused a lot of confusion at polling places, and many people had to fill out provisional ballots instead. Local news outlets like WHYY reported that people were frustrated and angry, and some felt like the system didn't care about them. This matters because if people don't trust the voting process, they might stop participating in it. My research question is basically asking how this poll book error affected independent and third-party voters' trust in elections. I want to know how people felt in the moment and how they feel looking back. Did it make them feel excluded? Did it change how likely they are to vote again? And this is something that you can study by talking to people and listening to their experiences, which is why it works well for anthropology. There are a few groups that could help with this project. One is Chester County Voter Services, since they run elections and would have insight into what went wrong. Another is the Committee of 70, which works on election transparency and voting rights. I'd also want to connect with local independent or third-party voter groups because they were directly affected. These groups will likely care about the findings and might want to use them to improve future elections. To answer my research question, I'd mostly use ethnographic methods. That means participant observation and interviews. I'd go to town halls or county meetings where elections are discussed and observe how people talk about the issue. I'd also interview independent and third-party voters who experienced the poll book problem and had to cast provisional ballots. If possible, I'd talk to poll workers too. Surveys could help, but they won't replace actually talking to people face to face. There are some ethical concerns with this project because voting and politics can be sensitive topics. People might worry about being judged or misunderstood. To avoid harm, I'd only include people who agree to participate and understand what the project is about. I'd use fake names to avoid sharing personal details, and I'd also be careful not to frame anyone as the bad guy, especially poll workers who were just doing their jobs and probably made a mistake. This project could benefit the community in a few ways. It gives independent and third-party voters a chance to be heard since they're often overlooked. It could also help election officials understand how mistakes affect public trust. By sharing the findings with civic groups or voter rights organizations, the research could help improve communication and prevent similar issues like this in the future. A few anthropological concepts are bureaucracy, because it's important that the error came from an administrative system that people depend on. Power and inequality matter because major party voters weren't affected the same way. Citizenship helps explain how being left out of voting systems can make people feel excluded from the democracy. Trust in institutions helps explain why one mistake can have a big impact. Overall, this project looks at how a technical mistake during an election affected real people and their trust in voting. I would plan to use ethnographic methods like observation and interviews to understand those experiences, and I think this project is important because voting is personal, and when systems fail, it can change how people engage with democracy in the future.